The sun hangs low over the vast plains of a civilization long vanished, casting soft shadows across the remains of once bustling cities. Streets, now overgrown with grasses and small shrubs, stretch between stone foundations, their edges softened by centuries of wind and rain. Imagine walking slowly along these ancient paths, feeling the weight of history pressing gently in the air, and the quiet rustle of leaves and grass carrying whispers of lives that once moved here with purpose and care. These people lived in intimate harmony with the land, yet subtle shifts in climate, water, and resources slowly shaped the fate of their communities, guiding them toward endurance or toward disappearance. Along the edges of these ruins, one can see traces of dwellings, circular huts with thatched roofs, rectangular structures of sun-baked brick, and the occasional stone wall standing stubbornly against time. Each structure tells a story of human ingenuity, the careful placement of foundations to avoid seasonal flooding, the ventilation for coolness in summer, the subtle angles that allowed rainwater to run off gently. Life here was a measured rhythm of work and rest, of tending fields, crafting tools, and maintaining the fragile balance between humans and the environment. A gentle historical truth is that early civilizations were extraordinarily sensitive to environmental change. Rivers shifted course gradually, rainfall patterns altered over decades, and soil that once yielded abundant crops could slowly lose fertility. People adapted in subtle ways. They constructed canals, adjusted planting cycles, and developed storage techniques to survive leaner seasons. Yet, despite ingenuity and resilience, sometimes environmental pressures combined with social strain, conflict, or trade disruptions to create tipping points that no one person could reverse. The marketplace, once filled with the gentle hum of conversation, soft barter, and the clink of simple tools, is now silent. Pots and baskets remain where they were set, moss growing over edges that once held grains, dried fruits, or small pieces of cloth. Merchants moved carefully among these stalls, observing both supply and demand, learning patterns of weather that might affect travel or harvests, attuning their steps to the rhythms of the land. And in the shadows of these stalls, children would play, elders would recount stories, and daily life would continue quietly, shaped by the delicate balance of human effort and natural forces. Another soft historical fact is that in many vanished civilizations, societal organization was closely tied to natural resources. When water grew scarce, the social structures that depended on irrigation, trade, and crop production began to strain. When forests were cleared or soil degraded, communities had to adapt quickly, sometimes relocating entirely. Some did, some survived in diminished forms, and some slowly faded into history, leaving only traces of homes, roads, and temples behind. Walking further along the ruins, one notices the remnants of ceremonial sites and temples. Even as daily life faltered under environmental stress, religious and cultural practices persisted. Altars, statues, and carefully aligned stones suggest rituals that sought to harmonize human life with cosmic cycles or the movement of celestial bodies. These rituals offered comfort and cohesion, providing communities with a sense of continuity and purpose even as uncertainty pressed close. And yet, subtle tensions arose in everyday life. Trade routes shifted or became dangerous as political alliances faltered. Food storage failed during unexpected droughts or flooding, and small conflicts once easily resolved, became more serious under strain. Travelers moved cautiously along paths that had once been safe. Leaders and elders negotiated constantly, balancing survival with tradition, each decision echoing across fields, villages, and marketplaces. By evening, the wind carries the gentle scent of wet earth, softening stone and clay alike. Shadows lengthen, and the quiet that now fills the streets reflects both the calm after work and the slow, almost imperceptible shifts that would eventually mark the decline of these once thriving communities. Life is quiet here, yet the land continues, observing patiently the slow passage of time, the rise and fall of those who once walked these paths. And so, as the first day of observation comes to a close, one can reflect on the fragility and resilience that coexisted in these ancient civilizations. Their people lived fully, adapting constantly. Yet even the most careful and patient efforts could not always counter the slow movements of nature and the compounding pressures of society. If you are still with this story, gently leave a comment with the time and where you are listening from. It is a small way to mark your presence and to share in the quiet rhythm of this journey through history. Rain clouds gather faintly in the distance, their edges soft against the pale sky, hinting at shifts in the weather that ancient peoples would have read with care. Let your mind drift gently with the story as we follow communities adapting to subtle changes in climate, shifting rivers and soil that slowly lost its richness. Life here was dictated not by haste, but by the quiet rhythms of observation and patience. Fields had to be tended with understanding of rainfall patterns, irrigation channels monitored and repaired, seeds sown according to memory of cycles passed down through generations. Paths that were once firm became treacherous after even a modest rainfall. Travelers and farmers alike learned to move with caution, lifting feet carefully over muddy patches, testing the firmness of earth before fully committing their weight. Simple homes built of mud brick or timber required constant maintenance. Roofs had to be patched, walls reinforced, and drainage carefully managed. Each repair, each measured step, was part of the subtle dialogue between humans and the land, a dialogue that demanded attention and a slow, deliberate rhythm. One soft historical fact is that many civilizations developed intricate water management systems not merely for irrigation, but as a response to changing environmental conditions. Canals, dikes, reservoirs, and terraces allowed communities to survive in times when rainfall was unpredictable or rivers changed course. These constructions were slow, deliberate works, requiring collective effort and careful observation, a testament to human ingenuity and patience. Daily life moved at a gentle pace, but each action carried importance. Farmers observed soil moisture before planting. Children helped carry water from wells to fields, and artisans repaired tools for the next day's labor. Even seemingly small adjustments, tilting a roof to shed water, lining a path with stones to reduce mud, were crucial for maintaining continuity in communities, delicately balanced on the edge of environmental change. Trade continued, but routes shifted in response to conditions. Caravans would pause, waiting for rivers to subside or paths to dry, observing and adjusting in harmony with the environment. Goods, messages, and knowledge flowed more slowly during these times, yet the rhythm of human interaction persisted, measured and deliberate, grounded in awareness of both risk and necessity. Villages showed subtle signs of adaptation to these pressures. Houses were spaced to avoid flood-prone areas. Storage pits were raised to protect food from water. Small terraces and embankments softened the impact of heavy rains. Even children, though playing quietly, learned these lessons, observing elders as they moved with careful, unhurried steps, understanding without instruction the ways to coexist with forces beyond human control. Conflict and cooperation intertwined as resources fluctuated. Communities negotiated water rights, shared knowledge of safe paths, and coordinated planting schedules. Social structures, though gentle and slow in their operation, adapted to the pressures of scarcity and opportunity alike. Leaders guided decisions with patience. Elders passed along crucial memory, and each member of the society contributed to maintaining balance. As evening falls, the sky softens, casting muted light over the fields and homes. Rivers glint faintly, reflecting the shifting clouds. The day's labor slows, steps are careful and measured, and families gather in dwellings that have been maintained over countless cycles of rain and sun. There is a rhythm here that is quiet yet deliberate, a continuity maintained through observation, adaptation, and steady care. And so, as night begins to settle over the land, the communities rest while the environment continues its subtle movements. The river may swell, the soil may soften, and the wind may shift again. Yet the people, attentive and deliberate, have learned to move with patience and awareness. The story of their endurance continues, a gentle unfolding of adaptation, resilience, and quiet harmony. The path ahead stretches into another day, another chapter of careful observation and measured response, and we follow, slowly and steadily, into the next part of the story where the subtle pressures of environment and society intertwine even more, shaping the fate of civilizations in ways both gentle and inexorable. The first light of dawn filters softly through misty clouds, painting the land in muted tones of gray and pale gold. Let your thoughts drift gently with the story, your breathing slow and calm, as we continue to follow the subtle forces that shape the fate of civilizations long vanished. In this part, we move closer to the heart of change, where the slow shifts of climate, soil, and resource distribution press upon human communities, testing their ingenuity, cooperation, and patience in ways both gentle and profound. Fields stretch out in patterns of labor and careful observation, terraces lined to reduce erosion, irrigation channels channeling water where it is needed most. Farmers rise early, their steps deliberate, moving between the soft mud of their plots and the small channels that have been dug, tested, and repaired over decades. They observe the soil for moisture and texture, the sky for the faintest hint of rain, and the wind for subtle shifts that might signal a coming storm or gentle mist. Every motion is measured. Every decision carries weight, for the balance of survival is delicate and easily disturbed. Along the winding paths between homes and fields, children move quietly, carrying small baskets of seed or water, learning by observation the subtle rhythms of life. They notice how elders test the ground with their feet, adjust tools to better suit a slope, or position stones to stabilize paths. Even play is slow and deliberate, infused with lessons of patience and awareness, a soft training ground for survival in a world in constant flux. Trade routes and villages adapt with equal care. Travelers move with attention to subtle Q's rivers slightly swollen, forest paths softened by rainfall, hilltops slick with morning dew. Each journey is measured in steps, each crossing tested with a stick or careful probe. Information, goods, and essential knowledge flow cautiously, deliberately, allowing civilizations to persist even under pressure. These routes are the arteries of survival, requiring both awareness and respect for the slow, persistent forces of nature. A historical insight is that ancient civilizations often developed extensive storage systems and collective knowledge precisely to buffer against gradual environmental change. Granaries were carefully designed to prevent moisture and pests, reservoirs regulated to maximize seasonal water, and terraces prevented erosion while preserving fertility. Communities observed, recorded, and adapted slowly, creating a rhythm of life that balanced immediate survival with the foresight of decades and generations. Within villages, social life continued with measured care. Families moved deliberately along paths, maintaining homes that required constant attention. Walls were reinforced to prevent water seepage. Roofs repaired gently. Terraces and embankments softened the impact of runoff. Every small act was intentional, a quiet testament to the long-term thinking necessary to endure the shifting patterns of environment and society. Even in moments of apparent calm, adaptation was ongoing, subtle, and precise. Conflicts, though rare, were resolved slowly, guided by the measured hands of elders and leaders. Resource allocation, water rights, and agricultural planning required patience, negotiation, and close attention to shifting conditions. Decisions were never rushed, for each choice had ripple effects across fields, homes, and trade networks. Cooperation was essential, not dramatic, but quiet, deliberate, and enduring. By midday, the sun peeks occasionally through soft clouds, illuminating patches of cultivated land, villages, and distant hills. Rivers reflect the gentle light, shifting and moving, a reminder of the constant flow that guides human decisions. Travelers, farmers, and artisans all move in synchrony with this rhythm, adapting to subtle changes in their surroundings, observing, adjusting, and responding with careful attention. Even minor changes, a wet patch of soil, a shifted stone, a faint change in air pressure, are met with deliberate action, preserving continuity and calm in a world of quiet pressures. As afternoon drifts toward evening, communities begin to gather in the safe folds of their homes. Firelight flickers softly in dwellings, casting warm, muted illumination across walls lined with tools, food, and carefully stored essentials. Conversations are gentle, work concludes, and a sense of rhythm, steady, unhurried, and resilient, permeates the environment. People reflect on the day, noting subtle lessons learned from water flow, soil condition, and the ever-shifting balance of human effort and natural forces. And as the sky softens, the day folding into night, the civilizations continue to adapt quietly, slowly, deliberately. The land may continue its gentle motions, rivers rising and falling, soil softening or firming, weather shifting, but people respond in rhythm, a continuous practice of observation, care, and patient adaptation. Every stone placed, every channel repaired, every pathway chosen reflects centuries of accumulated knowledge and the quiet endurance of generations. The story of these civilizations does not pause here. The subtle pressures continue, shaping paths, daily routines, and the very structure of communities in ways that are both gentle and inexorable. Let us now follow this rhythm further into the next part, where change continues to press, adaptation persists, and the delicate balance of survival unfolds more fully, carrying us smoothly into the next chapter of history. The evening light softens over the remains of once vibrant settlements, the air filled with the quiet rustle of leaves, distant bird calls, and the faint whisper of wind across stone and soil. Let your mind move slowly with the story, each detail settling gently as we follow civilizations navigating subtle but persistent pressures, dwindling resources, shifting climate, and the quiet strain of maintaining communities over generations. In this part, the story moves into the deeper interplay between human adaptation and environmental change, showing how even the smallest decisions could ripple outward, shaping survival or decline. Along the edges of fields, farmers and laborers move with calm deliberation, hands steady, feet placed cautiously on softened soil. They tend crops with attention honed over decades. Terraces are reinforced, irrigation channels adjusted to handle shifting flows. Seeds are sown at precise intervals to optimize growth despite changing rainfall. Observation is constant. The sky, the soil, the condition of stored grain all offer subtle clues guiding every decision. The rhythm of life is slow, deliberate, and immersive, as if each act is a quiet conversation with the earth itself. In marketplaces, soft voices exchange information with measured care. Traders navigate uneven streets, their carts laden with grains, cloth, and tools. Paths once solid may be muddy from seasonal rains, requiring attention and patience. Each interaction is carefully considered. Goods are moved with awareness of both supply and environmental conditions. Even commerce becomes a subtle exercise in observation and adaptation, reflecting the quiet intelligence that sustained civilizations through long, gradual change. Homes and structures reflect this same careful attention. Mud, bricks, timber, and stone require constant maintenance. Small repairs to walls, thatch patched on roofs, drainage adjusted to prevent damage. Even minor neglect could result in disproportionate challenges. Within these spaces, families and artisans carry out daily tasks at a measured pace, balancing labor with observation, responding gently to the environment rather than forcing control over it. Life, though quiet, is rich with subtle awareness and a profound, patient rhythm. One historical insight is that as resources fluctuated, communities often developed intricate social systems to manage scarcity. Water rights, access to fertile plots, and shared labor responsibilities were negotiated with care. Elders and leaders guided decisions slowly and deliberately, prioritizing cohesion, foresight, and long-term stability. These systems were not dramatic or flashy, but steady, resilient, and deeply interwoven with the survival of the community itself. As the day wanes, paths become softer under the weight of rain or evening dew. Travelers and villagers alike move deliberately, conserving energy, testing footing, and adjusting burdens. Even small gestures, tilting a container to prevent water seepage, retying a bundle to distribute weight, are critical to ongoing survival. Observation, mindfulness, and patience continue to govern every action. Religious and ceremonial spaces, too, show adaptation and endurance. Temples, shrines, and altars are maintained, their alignment and construction carefully preserved, even as pressures on daily life increase. Rituals continue, quietly binding communities together. providing structure, comfort, and purpose as environmental and social changes press steadily outward. The continuity of tradition helps stabilize populations, reinforcing patience, cooperation, and resilience in the face of uncertainty. Even in moments of quiet reflection, the pressures on civilization are evident. Soil that once yielded abundant harvests becomes harder to cultivate. Water flows more unpredictably. Trade routes shift or become dangerous. Communities respond with deliberate adjustments. Careful monitoring of rivers, rotation of fields, redistribution of labor, and the slow accumulation of knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Each act is part of an ongoing dialogue with the environment, a measured effort to maintain continuity and survival. By nightfall, homes glow with gentle firelight, casting long, soft shadows across walls and streets. Families gather quietly, preparing tools, tending small fires, and preparing for rest. The day's lessons linger. Which terraces held water best? How soil responded to rainfall? Which trade paths were most reliable? Observation and adaptation continue even in reflection, weaving a rhythm that guides communities toward resilience. And so, as darkness spreads over the land, the story of these civilizations flows seamlessly onward. The subtle pressures of environment and society continue to shape paths, decisions, and daily life, laying the groundwork for the final part of this journey. The next chapter will reveal the culmination of adaptation, endurance, and change, gently guiding us toward understanding how some civilizations ultimately persisted while others faded quietly into memory. Night drapes itself softly across the landscape, folding valleys, fields, and settlements into a calm, muted palette. Let your thoughts settle with the story, each breath slow and even, as we follow the final movements of civilizations pressed by environmental shifts, social change, and the quiet passage of time. In this part, we witness a culmination of adaptation, resilience, and the subtle forces that guided the survival or disappearance of communities across generations. The land itself continues its gentle work. Rivers shift slowly, carving new channels, carrying soil and nutrients downstream, while rain softens or hardens the earth beneath the feet of those moving through it. Fields, once fertile and abundant, may show signs of strain, patches of exhausted soil, terraces washed by seasonal floods, or crops that respond unevenly to diminished rainfall. Farmers, artisans, and laborers move with careful awareness, their steps deliberate, their actions informed by accumulated knowledge and quiet observation. Homes, built with patience and foresight, continue to be maintained with care. Roofs are repaired, walls reinforced, and drainage adjusted to accommodate subtle environmental changes. Even small axe tilting, a storage container to prevent moisture, repositioning a bundle of supplies, checking the condition of a tool are critical for ongoing survival. These daily attentions, though unremarkable in isolation, collectively sustain communities through periods of strain and uncertainty. Trade and travel adapt gently to environmental pressures. Caravans move with measured caution along paths softened by rain, rivers, and erosion. Goods, messages, and knowledge flow slowly, deliberately, shaped by the landscape and the conditions of the day. Communities depend on these rhythms. The exchange of information about fertile fields, safe water crossings, or shifting weather patterns becomes a quiet network of survival, a delicate web of observation, patience, and cooperation. Social structures mirror these environmental rhythms. Elders guide decisions with long-term foresight, balancing resource allocation, labor responsibilities, and conflict resolution. Leadership is measured, patient, and aware of subtle changes in both people and the environment. Communities negotiate water rights, plan planting cycles, and maintain trade agreements, all with a gentle rhythm of observation and adjustment. Cooperation, continuity, and awareness are woven deeply into daily life. Even in moments of apparent calm, the quiet pressures of decline or persistence are present. Soil fertility wanes, water supplies fluctuate, trade routes shift, and cultural practices adjust in response. Communities that notice, adapt, and act patiently endure. Those unable to respond fully begin to fade. The process is rarely dramatic, often imperceptible day to day, but over years and decades, it becomes evident which settlements will persist and which will quietly vanish, leaving only traces of dwellings, walls, and artifacts for future observers. Ceremonial spaces, temples, and shrines continue to provide structure, comfort, and cohesion. Rituals are observed, offering both stability and continuity. These quiet practices sustain the social fabric, linking past, present, and future in a seamless rhythm. Even as environmental pressures press steadily outward, communities maintain cohesion through tradition, observation, and slow, deliberate adaptation. By the time the moon rises high in the sky, the land is bathed in soft silver light. Shadows stretch across terraces, fields, and streets. Families rest within carefully maintained homes. Fires burn gently, casting flickering warmth across interiors. The day's labor has ended, yet the subtle work of adaptation continues in thought, memory, and the quiet preservation of knowledge. Every action, every observation, every adjustment echoes forward, sustaining life in a delicate balance that has endured for generations. And now, as the night deepens, we leave these civilizations in their quiet rest, the gentle rhythm of life continuing, even as some settlements fade and others endure. The land whispers softly with memory, the rivers murmur, and the wind carries faint echoes of human footsteps. We pause alongside them, absorbing the lessons of observation, patience, and resilience, letting the story settle within the mind and body. Good night. May the soft rhythm of these ancient journeys, the gentle endurance of civilizations, and the calm unfolding of history carry you peacefully into rest. Drift slowly, breathe deeply, and let the quiet lessons of the past flow with your own calm tonight.